Alright, so when we resize our window in the browser, we notice that the display gets awkward at about 600 pixels. So that's going to be our breakpoint for our first media query. And so what we want to do is change this so that at the larger width, say when it gets over 600 pixels, we want it to look more like this, where the navigation moves from going up and down to going across, going horizontal. And then we can also move our sections into 3 columns. And we're going to use grid for that, and we're going to use flex for our navigation. So let's get started. And the first thing that we want to do is code in our media query, and then we're going to, inside that media query, we're going to add a nav-ul rule to set up a flex container for a row that does not wrap, and then we want to code the empty space before, between, and after the flex items. Alright, so I'm going to open up brackets, and to get started we need to scroll all the way down to the end. Remember that all of this CSS gets loaded no matter what, and then our media query is only going to be loaded if the width is enough. And then if we have style rules that match other style rules, then the new ones that are lower will override the initial ones. Alright, so let's get started with the media query. And the media query starts with @media, and then in parentheses we're going to put in our condition here. We want mid-width to be 600 pixels. And then remember that we're going to throw brackets around the whole media query. So I'm just going to get that set up to start. And then inside this we put the rules that will load if the width is larger than 600 pixels. So we want to start with our nav-ul, and we're going to set our display to flex, and we want to set our flex flow. This is kind of the abbreviated way to do this, sorry, to row and no wrap. And then finally we want to justify the content, and I mean, you could use another one if you want. I'm just going to use space around. There's other values you could use there. Okay, so let me just save that, and then let's go back to the instructions and see what the next thing is. Okay, so we want to get rid of that bottom border in the nav, so I'm going to add that rule. Right now you can see what we've got going on there. They still have underlines under them. So let me go to brackets again and add another rule. So remember, we did nav-li already, but this is going to overwrite it only if the width is big enough. Okay, so I'm going to set my border bottom to none. And then now when we save that, when we look at this, we can see that the borders on the bottom are gone. And then finally we'll add a section rule that sets the left and right padding to 2 ems. And I can just copy and paste that to make it a little faster. Do my beautify. Alright, so let's go check it out and make sure that that's working so far. And it looks like it is. So now how do we know the media query is working? Okay, let's resize this and see what happens. So when we're at the smaller view, the phone view, we see that the navigation is vertical with the borders. And then when we expand it, as soon as we get past 600, then the navigation switches. So that's how we know that the media query is working. All right, so let's go see what's next. What we're going to try to do is get these sections in yurts and activities to show up as columns. And we did that before by using float. And if you want to, you could go back and do that again. Just use the float. But I want to show you how to do this using grid. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add this CSS to set up the grid, and then we're doing this with a class called content, so we have to add that class to yurts and activities. Okay, so let's go ahead and add this CSS to the CSS within this media query. And it looks like I've lost my closing tag on my media query, so I want to make sure that my closing curly brace. Sorry. Okay, so I want to make sure I don't lose that. Remember that this media query starts here, and then we have the rules inside of it. And that's one of those things that people do wrong frequently. Okay, so I'm just pasting this in, and I'm going to go ahead and beautify this. It'll make it a little bit more clear. And we'll talk about this in a minute. So let me just save that, and then I'm going to go to yurts, and inside the body tag I'm going to add class equals content. So I just added that to yurts. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Okay, so what I've done is I've just gone into a grid layout where the sections are in the grids. Now if I go to activities, I'm not seeing that yet. And what's going to make that work again is that I have to go to activities, and I have to go to the body tag and add class equals content. And once I do that, and then I go preview it, then I can see that everything's in the 3 sections. And we can test the media query again. Let's see what happens. When we're at the small size, it's all in one column. As soon as we hit 600 pixels, then it shifts to the 3 columns.